Hi, y'all. Cheers. We're here to make our versus video, and tonight we'll be talking about Van Halen, their first album. So it was his pick, so I'm gonna let him start.
Well, okay then. Well, this is Van Halen's first album, and it came out in 1978, and it's probably their best album by a lot of people's standards, and it's part of the classic Van Halen lineup with David Lee Roth that lasted up through '84 until the current reunion of 3 out of the 4 members. Anyway, this album has a lot of the songs that they play on classic rock radio. Eruption, Running with the Devil, You Really Got Me, Jamie's Crying, Ice Cream Man. And every song on the album's good as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, Van Halen started a trend. They were like the first of the hair metal bands, I think, without really being a hair metal band, because that term did not exist. They were like the prototype. They were from California. And Eddie Van Halen started a whole new finger tapping style on his guitar that no one had done previous, or at least not to that extent. And then, of course, you had David Lee Roth doing the jumping around, the aerobics, or not aerobics, what do they call them? Acrobatics that he did on stage.
What's kind of aerobic?
Well, aerobics. He dressed like an aerobic instructor sometimes. So, what else do you want me to say?
You lost your thoughts.
I didn't have any more.
Well, for me, I never really knew this album very well. When my first experience with Van Halen was Fair Warning,
which is a great album. That's one of my favorites.
So that's where I came into Van Halen. Now, granted, I have gone back through their discography and familiarized myself with their other music, and from Fair Warning on. But I'd have to say that from this, even though there's amazing songs on here, Jamie's Crying, I can't talk tonight. Jamie's Crying is my absolute favorite song off this album. And I only think that's because I just really like the song. I like the way that it sounds, the music, the lyrics. I like the whole thing. So it's a complete package for me. They do have other songs on here that are familiar to everyone, like he said, Running with the Devil, Ice Cream Man, You Really Got Me. Ice Cream Man, I can't say that they really played that where I grew up that much, so I wasn't really familiar with that until I got this album. However, You Really Got Me and Running with the Devil, staples when it comes to Van Halen. So, I think they overplay those songs in my own opinion. But Jamie's Crying is my absolute favorite song off this album. Amazing band. I've read several books, Duff Mahagan from Guns N' Roses and Stephen Pearcy from Rat. Both of their books state, especially Stephen Pearcy, state how influential Van Halen was to their bands when they were running in that Los Angeles music era of the 80s, and how, you know, they were, especially David Lee Roth and Stephen Pearcy, they became friends, and very influential on getting them a step further, taking things from them to revolutionize what they were trying to do. So you can't go without a doubt saying that Van Halen is most definitely a staple, an influential band, and a very important band if you're into metal, rock, or even 80s music. They would go through all three of those types of music or genre, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
So, as a whole, the album is amazing. They always say that a band's first album is their best.
Usually.
I don't know how true that is, but for the most part, I would have to agree with that. This is one of their best. Now, granted, Fair Warning will probably be my favorite album of theirs. I know most people are thinking 5150. But that's where I came into Van Halen, and that's my most sentimental music. When I think of Van Halen, I think of Fair Warning. So
well, it's funny though. Their last album, 1984, with David Lee Roth, went to number 2 on the charts, and then when David Lee Roth left and Sammy Hagar joined, they had their first number 1 of, I think, 3 number 1 albums in a row with 5150 all the way up through whatever the last one was. And I think that's very odd because, I mean, I know Sammy Hagar had quite a popular solo career, but compared to the original Van Halen, you would think they would have had a number 1. I mean, they came really close there towards the end. I think MTV helped push that because of the videos and stuff.
Right.
There's 2 videos from this album. Or, no, actually, there's 3 videos from this album.
Yeah.
When they made them in 78, there wasn't really a video channel, but they ended up being played on VH1 later and stuff. But I was going to say, this album, or Van Halen, I should say, supposedly Gene Simmons discovered Van Halen. They were playing it somewhere in probably the Sunset Strip, and he's seen them and did some demos with Eddie Van Halen, and which has still never been released. And I think those are Van Halen songs, and then some of them weren't released songs. And the cover photos and the back photo on this album was done at the Whiskey A Go Go, is where they photographed those pictures. But it says, produced by, special thanks by Gene Simmons. Does it say, who's it say it's produced? It's set up here somewhere.
Production.
The producer was Ted Templeman, I want to say, but I know he did later Van Halen albums. It doesn't really say, does it? Mm-mm. Just says special thanks to Gene Simmons. Recorded at Sunset Sound in Hollywood. I don't recognize any of those names. But anyway, there it is. Ted Templeman. I was right and didn't know it.
Well, and then David Lee Roth, after leaving Van Halen, went on and had quite a career on his own as well.
For a while.
So it was kind of funny that they took a solo artist and incorporated him into their band and went on to make great hits.
And they were a different band entirely.
Well, they still had great music.
Yeah, I mean, but that's arguable with some fans.
Well, I mean, you're always going to have that argument, just like with Kiss, you know, the original members versus the ones that are there now or have taken the place in some time frame. You know, you're always going to have that argument, David Lee Roth or not.
Or Sammy Hagar.
So, I mean, in my frame of mind, since I'm a music lover, of course I have my bands that I've always wanted to stay together and be together, and, you know, that's the way I remember them, that's the way I want them to be. But if they're still creating good music without that formula, then I see nothing wrong with that.
Well, when 5150 came out, I bought it brand new in the store on vinyl record. And I liked the album. I played it all the time. Liked every song on it. I still like it because of that reason. It was the first Van Halen I bought with Sammy Hagar because it was the first release.
OU812. Isn't that the first one?
5150 was first. Then
Oh.
Then OU812. Then for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, and then Balance.
You're right.
And I think that's the last one they did was Balance, other than the live ones and stuff. But the last album that Van Halen did with David Lee Roth for the reunion, before this last reunion tour, the album is classic Van Halen. If you listen to it and you don't know that it's the new album, you would swear it was something off one of their older albums. And if you listen to Van Halen with Sammy Hagar and don't know that's what it is, you would swear it was a Sammy Hagar solo song. So, you do have that. I prefer the original band with David Lee Roth, as far as those original albums, just because, and this is just irrelevant, but only to me, because I consider that the classic sound and the classic songs that I'm familiar with, that they still play on classic rock radio. I mean, some of the stuff now, since enough time has passed, you'll probably hear some of the later stuff, but from like 1984 on back, to me, that's the classic songs that I want to hear, like even Jump, that was like a real different single for Van Halen, even though it went even more in that direction once Sammy Hagar joined. And I think it would have, even if David Lee Roth was in the band the whole time, I think it would still got more commercial, and I think they would have got more mainstream just like they did, because that's sort of what David Lee Roth was trying to do anyway. And he sort of did that on his own a little bit. I mean, he started out trying to emulate what Van Halen was, and then he sort of got off into lounge tunes and, stuff, which he almost is designed for that with his personality and stuff. But to watch him now on some of the footage I've seen, I have mixed emotions about it. Because I want, like she said, I want my bands that I grew up with or that I'm used to seeing a certain way. I want the look to match the sound. And, when people get older, a lot of times they don't do that. It's not anything against them personal. It's just, it's like I see them, it's like, oh, that's just not right. Something's just not right. And, once, she mentioned Kiss, whether you change band members or not, Kiss is one of the few bands that can hide behind the makeup, or at least, since they put it back on. And other bands, they can't do that. I'm sure they don't even think about it one way or the other. That's just who they are, and here we are in 2016 or whatever. And, it's like she said, if Van Halen's still out there in whatever form, still touring and especially recording, I'd support any band that does that. Same thing with any of the classic rock bands that's still together, because they're a lot more few and far between.
Right.
A lot of them have just completely quit for one reason or another, or had to quit. So, yeah.
Favorite song?
Well, that's a hard one because I take the album as a whole. Let me look at the track list real quick. I take the album as a whole, but I would say probably because on rock radio they play Eruption, and then they play You Really Got Me as one track. It's technically two tracks. And to me, yeah, I know You Really Got Me is a King song, but to me it's a Van Halen song.
Right.
And every song on it's good, so if I was just going to choose one, I'd have to choose the combination of Eruption and You Really Got Me, played as one track. If I wasn't going to say that, then it would probably be Jamie's Crying, because it's the most pop sounding song on the album. But, I could sit there all day and pick out different ones for different reasons, but I'd go with at least with one of those.
Well, how many spins?
I'd give it 10 spins because it's an album I don't get tired of, and it's one that is a standout album. Like you said with Fair Warning, that's one of my other favorite Van Halen albums as a whole album.
Yeah.
Some of the other Van Halen albums, I'm not super familiar with them because I didn't own them growing up.
Right.
this one I had not in the very beginning, but I had it sooner than I had some of the other ones. 1984 is an album I like almost every track on it. But yeah, 10 spins.
I'm going to go 8 spins. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. So that's all we got. Next time on Versus, we will be reviewing Duran Duran Rio.
I knew we'd get around to Duran Duran eventually.
Eventually. So that's what we're doing next time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing to my channel. Love all your guys' comments. Please continue to comment. Well, we'll see you next time. Happy Halloween.
Peace out.